Happy Monday intro to A and P. We are here day 2 with our endocrine system, and we're going to go over the glands that make up the endocrine system and briefly about the hormones. We will cover the actions of those hormones in a lot more detail later. So this is just a brief introduction. So you're going to want your study guide packet. We're going to be mostly or almost entirely here on page 2 with the endocrine man here. Well, actually, the unisex individuals, because we got both the ovaries and the testes pictured. So our endocrine model. So I'm going to split this screen just so my font can be just a little bit larger for you as you fill this out. And I'm going to just briefly go through it. I will try to stay consistent, color coding the names of glands and then their hormones. So I think last week I did just black and blue, so I'm going to try to keep that little system going. So one very important gland, kind of gland, neuroendocrine gland, that's not pictured on here. So I want you to draw a little line going right above my pituitary gland, which is the dangling down one right here. So right above it, that's going to be my hypothalamus. And it's got some important features in both the endocrine and nervous systems. It releasing hormones. That's all you really need to know about what it releases, but how it controls the pituitary is of a particular importance. We're going to get into that more later. So not today, but again, on another day, we're going to do the next page and discuss the pituitary gland in detail. So you could draw like a little arrow. You don't have to say see next page, but just a little arrow to know that there's more detail on that later. All right. I got my little buddy here. She's going to join us for our lesson. So next up here is this gland in the back side of the brain, which is your penal body or penal gland, and it releases melatonin. So this is responsible for your sleepfulness and wakefulness of your body. And it's one thing that kind of gets messed with teenage years too. It makes your sleepfulness and wakefulness a little off-kilter compared to adults. B and C, both of these are the pituitary gland, but they have different hormones. So the posterior pituitary, the one on the back side, has its own set of hormones, and then the anterior pituitary has its own set of hormones. You don't need to see next page, but maybe draw a little arrow so that when you are studying later, you know that all the details about them will be on page 3 instead of page 2. And I'm not even going to touch on them today except to say we're going to get there later. All right. Then we have D, which is our thyroid gland. And our thyroid gland produces these 3 hormones. So it produces thyroxine, and it's abbreviated as T4. Its job is to regulate insulin. T3, way easier to say than triiodithyronine. It's got like that prefix tri, so if that helps you remember the T3. So T3 and T4 both rely on iodine, and you can almost kind of see that word iodine, sort of iodo in the name here. And iodine is a nutrient that we get commonly in salt. I have some in my kitchen, but if you look at most salts that you have in your cupboard, it might say iodinized salt, and that's just a nutrient that we add to most salts. It's tasteless, but we get it plenty here in the U.S. But without iodine, your thyroid gland cannot produce T3 and T4, and it sits right here in your neck. And so individuals in third world countries that maybe don't have the same nutritional things, just simply iodinized salt, they can form this thing called a goiter. And the goiter is an enlargement of your thyroid gland. The third hormone that it produces is called calcitonin, and it lowers calcium ions. But I want to show you here a picture of a goiter. So this would be what it looks like. It's just the swelling, right, of the thyroid gland because of a lack of iodine. Right, so due to iodine deficiency. This picture here is also a disease related to the thyroid gland called Graves' disease. And this is an overproduction of the thyroid gland. And I don't have it on here, and I should have added it, but if you want to like bracket T3 and T4 right here, and then write the word metabolism. T3 and T4 are essential for your body's metabolism. And so Graves' disease is a hypermetabolism person. They experience like tons of energy. They don't sleep. They probably lose weight because they're like going, which might sound like a nice thing, except then your body starts to shut down because it can't rely on that high of a octane lifestyle. And so one interesting symptom of Graves' disease is bulging eyeballs. So it's not that cool. All right, no one wants bulging eyeballs. All right, and then moving down, this next gland, oh wait, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we get down to E, there's another gland I want you to add to here. So this little line here is referring to these, go ahead and add 4 little dots. It's not important, it's red. I just wanted you to be able to see it. But add 4 little dots to your thyroid gland. On the posterior side of your thyroid is the parathyroid glands, and there's 4 of them. And they produce parathyroid hormone, which is abbreviated PTH, parathyroid hormone. And we'll get more into its roles later. All right, and then sitting right above my heart, it sits like almost directly on top of it, is the thymus gland. This, I believe, is trying to show your trachea on your body here, but the thymus secretes thymosins, and this is important in regulating some of my blood cells in my body. It's really, really active in young people your age. Your thymus is probably really active. All right, moving on down our endocrine model here, and we're going to get to some important hormones surrounding these organs, which are your kidneys. And your kidneys actually secrete their own hormones as well. Things that aren't considered glands, but just other body parts, secrete certain hormones. Your digestive system secretes lots of hormones. Your heart secretes hormones. So the kidney is one organ in particular that secretes its own hormone called renin. And renin stimulates this guy over here, which I'll get to in just a second. But it stimulates the adrenal cortex to release its hormone, aldosterone. So it's sort of this, again, a cascade effect where this is going to stimulate this to release its hormone. H here is the pancreas. It's got important digestive functions, but super important endocrine functions. It is the one that we associate a lot of times with diabetes because it's what produces insulin in our body. Now, the types of cells in this little guy here that produces the insulin, they're called the beta cells, and this is the Greek letter B for beta. It's kind of got this long tail at the end. But the other hormone that it makes is glucagon, and this secretes alpha cells. And so the A is kind of looks like a regular A, but with sort of a, I don't know, more of a tail at the top and the bottom. So glucagon and insulin both work together to regulate our blood glucose in our body, which is super important. And then sitting right on top of our kidneys, they kind of look like a little hat, is the adrenal glands. And the adrenal gland is broken up into 2 sections, the outside and the inside. So the outside is called the cortex. Just like in our brain, the cerebral cortex was the outside, the adrenal cortex is the outside of our adrenal gland. And the inside is the adrenal medulla, just like the cerebral medulla we didn't talk that much about, but that's the inside of the brain. So medulla just means inside, cortex means outside. We're doing the urinary system in honors right now, and the renal cortex is the outside of the kidney, and the renal medulla is the inside. So it just means outside, inside. So the cortex, the outside of my adrenal gland, produces quite a few important hormones. A group of hormones called mineralocorticoids, but the important one that we are going to focus on is aldosterone, which raises your sodium absorption in your bloodstream. So the kidneys, who control a lot of our salt absorption, is going to stimulate this to release aldosterone, and then will absorb more sodium. So again, cascade effect. It also has glucocorticoids. The main one here is cortisol, and then our sex hormones. So we think of our swimsuit region area as being our sex hormone But our kidneys, well, the adrenal glands produce sex hormones too, and testosterone. We usually associate testosterone with males, but females make testosterone as well. Males make way more because the testes make testosterone in addition. But when females' ovaries start to shut down during menopause, females end up having more testosterone than estrogen, and that gives some of the super fun male characteristics that start developing around menopause. So like get a little bit of mustache hair, things like that, that might be affected by low estrogen, but still testosterone because our adrenal glands make it for males and females. So females have testosterone too. All right, so that's the outside, the adrenal cortex of my medulla. The inside, which I showed you a picture of it on Friday, is nervously stimulated to release my fight or flight hormones. A lot of times you call it adrenaline, but that's not actually what it's called. These guys are called our acetylcholamines, and specifically epinephrine and norepinephrine are the two main fight or flight hormones. So when we talk about adrenaline, it's not a real hormone. It's these guys that give adrenaline, that like rush, that fight or flight. So epinephrine and norepinephrine in particular. So the inside and the outside of our adrenal glands secrete different hormones here. All right, now moving down to the moneymaker hormones. So for females, our ovaries produce our main female hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen gives us our female sex characteristics, breast development, things like that. Progesterone is really responsible for controlling a lot of our menstrual cycle. And so it sort of regulates your monthly cycle is progesterone. And then in the testes, right, we are producing our male sex hormones, which are called androgens. And there's a wide range of them, right? Androgens are just like a large group of different ones, including testosterone. So testosterone is not the only male sex hormone, but it's the one that gets all the fame and glory. But androgens are just male sex hormones. All right, that is it here for today. This is the picture we're going to get to next video, and we'll jump into the pituitary gland in a little bit more detail. All right, I hope you guys have a nice week. Happy Monday. Be paying attention. I'm going to be putting out soon an end of the year calendar for us with final dates and all that good stuff. So be looking for that from me, and I will see you virtually soon.